Hello, check. Hi, if we could just have everybody please come in and take a seat. We've been waiting for some of the high school buses to arrive, and they were lost, and they're parking, and we'll have students trickling in as we get started. But just want to ask everyone to kind of move into the theater and find your seats, please. Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Chris Devers, and I'm the CEO of Rancho Cielo, a participant in this incredible event today. Many years ago, the vision of Judge Lavarado, Monterey County Superior Court Judge, to launch such an event, Law Day, the celebration of the rule of law, and as it pertains to our democracy, what an incredible event and how far we've come with all the collaborative partners you see on the screen in front of you. But most importantly, all of our young people here learning and understanding the importance of the rule of law. We're so excited to have you here in this beautiful theater at CSU and their generosity of opening up this space to us. And today's panelist and event program, and most of all our keynote speaker, who you're going to hear from, is you're in for a real treat. And we're lucky and blessed to have all the support that we do for this program. I want to quickly just recognize Judge Lavarado. Judge Lavarado, can you stand up? Are you in the room? Or is he out there ushering people in? There he is. Thank you, Judge. I now want to introduce, as we get started, I want to introduce the music instructor from CSU who's going to sing for you today the national anthem, Carlos Totres.
If you don't mind, would you stand with me? Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. And now I want to introduce our Master of Ceremonies for today's event, the Honorable Pamela Butler, Monterey County Superior Court Judge. She is currently serving as the presiding judge. The Honorable Pamela Butler is a judge for the Monterey County Superior Court in California. She was appointed to the bench by former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2009. Judge Butler received her BA from the University of California, Santa Barbara, my alma mater. We used to refer to that as the Harvard of the West, jokingly. She also received her JD from Southern Methodist University School of Law and her LLM from Chapman University. Prior to her appointment to the Superior Court, Judge Butler had worked as the Deputy District Attorney with the Monterey County District Attorney's Office since 1995. Please welcome our Master of Ceremonies, presiding Superior Court Judge, Pamela Butler.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. It is wonderful to see this room filled with so many students who take an interest in the law and in the judicial system. Every year, the American Bar Association designates a theme to highlight an important issue relating to the law or the legal system, celebrated through Law Day. In 1958, President Eisenhower proclaimed Law Day to honor the role of law in the creation of the United States of America. 3 years later, Congress followed suit by passing a joint resolution establishing May 1st as the official date for Law Day. Presidents since then have systematically issued a Law Day proclamation on May 1st in celebration of the country's commitment to the rule of law. The United States Code 36 USC Section 113 reads in part, Law Day USA is a special day of celebration by the people of the United States, one, in appreciation of their liberties and the reaffirmation of their loyalty to the United States and of their rededication to the ideals of equality and justice under law in their relationships with each other and with other countries. And two, for the cultivation of the respect for law that is so vital to the democratic way of life. This year's Law Day theme is Cornerstones of Democracy, Civics, Civility, and Collaboration. The Constitution is a dynamic document, as it not only outlines a blueprint for government, but also delegates power, articulates rights, and offers mechanisms for change. It is neither perfect nor exhaustive, as our nation's history makes clear. Legislation, court rulings, amendments, lawyers, and we, the people, have built upon those original words across generations to attempt to make the more perfect union more real and more perfect. That effort continues today as contemporary leaders and everyday citizens raise their voices as loud as ever to fulfill the promise of the Constitution. Defining and refining those words of the Constitution might be our oldest national tradition, and how each of us works together toward a more perfect union. Today's event is made possible by many wonderful community partners that deeply care about the success of our local youth. I want to give a special thanks to CSU for sharing their facilities with us today, to the Monterey County Superior Court judges, to the Monterey County Office of Education, and to Rancho Cielo. I am pleased to introduce the president of CSU Dr. Vanya Quinones. Dr. Vanya Quinones has a PhD and was appointed by the California State University Board of Trustees to serve as the 4th president of California State University, Monterey Bay. She began her term on August 15th, 2022, and is focusing on student success for her region, championing diversity and inclusion, making the campus a cultural hub for the region, and positioning CSU to be a model in public higher education. She is also a neurobiologist, biopsychologist, and a noted researcher who has published more than 70 peer-reviewed papers. She's accumulated a 30-year-plus career working in scientific research, academic administration, program and research-focused fundraising, student success, and diversity in the arts and sciences. Dr. Quinones was born in a small beach town of Arecibo in the United States territory of Puerto Rico and grew up in the country's capital city of San Juan. She went on to earn a Bachelor of Science degree in biology and a Master of Science degree in cell biology from the University of Puerto Rico, and a doctorate in neurobiology and physiology from Rutgers University. She went to work at New York's Rockefeller University as a postdoctoral associate and later a research associate, and in 1997 became an adjunct research faculty member and guest scientist in its laboratory of the biology of addictive diseases. She was one of a handful of research pioneers who described gender differences in the brain and helped change the course of future research in that area. She worked for 21 years at the City University of New York, Hunter College, where she served as an assistant, associate, and full professor in the Department of Psychology before being appointed to serve as the chair of the department. She was later promoted to the role of associate provost for student success and retention. She served as provost and executive vice president for academic affairs at Pace University in New York, starting in July 2018. She had oversight of all academic and student-related academic offices and personnel, as well as information technology. She also held the rank of full professor in the Department of Psychology. And I think we have a video.
Good morning, everyone. I am California State University Monterey Bay President Vania Quiñones. Bienvenidos. I am pleased to welcome all of you to Law Day at CSUMB. While I cannot be with you here today, I commend all the high school students and college students who are here to explore careers in the legal profession. We're here to help you discover your potential and plans for your future. At CSUMB, we are committed to diversity and inclusion. We want to ensure all students from our region have access to higher education and that our students leave well prepared to pursue their careers of their choice or to continue to obtain a graduate degree. Today, you will have a chance to hear from speakers who work in our region as part of the justice system, and you will have the opportunity to learn about programs we offer here at CSUMB that can help you toward a degree in law. For example, our human communication major offers a pre-law minor that places an emphasis on understanding the law and how to be an active and engaged citizen. I also want to welcome all our guest speakers who you will meet today as part of today's program. Thank you for taking out time to be here out of your busy schedule and to meet our students. I especially want to thank former Secretary of Defense Leo Panetta for being our keynote speaker today. Leon, you and your family have long been supporters of CSUMB, and I know that you will have inspiring words for all of the attendees today. I also want to thank all our partners, including County of Monterey Superior Court, the Monterey County Office of Education, Harnell College, Rancho Cielo, and the Monterey College of Law. Thank you for being here. I hope you all enjoy Law Day at CSUMB. Have a good day.
I am also pleased to introduce the Monterey County Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Deneen Gus. Dr. Gus was sworn in as the Monterey County Superintendent of Schools on January 7th, 2019, and is now serving her first term of office. Dr. Gus continually supports Monterey County's 24 local school districts and the 78,000 students they serve. Prior to January 7th, Dr. Gus had served as the Deputy Superintendent of the Monterey County Office of Education, responsible for administering the day-to-day operations of all divisions and services throughout the organization. Dr. Gus is a 30-year educator with a doctorate degree in educational leadership. She was a classroom teacher for 10 years, including 2 years as a teacher in a bilingual program in South Central Los Angeles. During her teaching tenure, Dr. Gus was a mentor teacher for new teachers and a master teacher for teacher candidates completing their student teaching experience. She continues to be a strong advocate for the teaching profession. She also served as a college adjunct professor for San Jose State University. Dr. Gus has been an administrator for 20 years, serving as an assistant principal, director of curriculum and instruction, associate superintendent of educational services, and as a district superintendent of the Soledad Unified School District from 2010 through 2013, and a deputy superintendent for the county office since March of 2013. Dr. Gus completed her undergraduate studies with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Liberal Studies from California State University, Dominguez Hills, her master's degree in Education Administration and Supervision from California State University, San Jose, and her doctorate of education in educational leadership from Argosy University. With a lens of community and equity, Dr. Gus is focused on strengthening community engagement and improving educational outcomes for Monterey County's youth. Dr. Gus serves as a core convener for the Bright Futures Cradle to Career Initiative, sponsored by California State University, Monterey Bay, represents MCOE with Impact Monterey County, a collaborative focused on improving the quality of life for Monterey County residents, and she serves on the Hartnell College Bond Oversight Committee. She also serves on 2 nonprofit boards, the Bob Hoover Academy, Every Kid Can Fly, and Girls Incorporated of the Central Coast. Dr. Gus is an active Rotarian, and we also have a video prepared by Dr. Gus.
Good morning and welcome to Law Day 2023. I'm Dr. Deneen Gus, Monterey County Superintendent of Schools. I'm excited to hear there are so many students, educators, and colleagues attending today's event, as well as elected officials and friends from the law community. I know that today will be a great day of learning together and reflecting on the possibilities. Many thanks to CSUMB for hosting this year's event and to all of the committee members who worked behind the scenes for many months to put this program together. Law Day is such an exciting and enlightening experience because it gives us the opportunity to learn more about our democracy, civic law, the history of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and so much more. This year's Law Day theme is Cornerstones of Democracy, Civics, Civility, and Collaboration, with this description touching on our need to rebuild trust in our institutions and collaborate together to address the challenges that face our nation. It's more important than ever that we start to repair the deep divisions that we are experiencing in American society and move forward in more cooperative and collective approaches. I know that there are students in attendance today from schools throughout Monterey County. I applaud you for taking part in this unique learning experience and immersing yourself in a day of civic learning. You will be engaging with some very prominent local civic leaders, and I'm certain you will gain great insights and knowledge from each one of them as they talk about their careers and why the judicial system is so important to our society. I encourage you to dig deep into today's lessons, advance your understanding of how our world is changing and how the Constitution guides the branches of our own government in their everyday actions to meet our ever-changing needs. Once again, I would like to give a shout out to our partners planning and hosting this year's event and to all of the community leaders who helped make this day possible. I also want to do a special shout out to Judge Sam Lavarado. He has been the inspiration behind this annual event since its inception a few years ago. I'm hopeful that all of you will leave today's event understanding more about our democracy, the importance of our legal process, and how our Constitution has evolved, as well as ways in which you can promote civics, civility, and collaboration. Have a wonderful day of learning at Law Day 2023.
As part of our exciting array of Law Day content for students, teachers, and our community members, some of our local teachers teamed up with California State University Monterey Bay students to explore some of the topics and lessons around the 2023 Law Day theme. The theme this year is Cornerstones of Democracy, Civics, Civility, and Collaboration. In this video, you can see one of these amazing collaborative lessons with the talented students of North Salinas High School.
All right, so what happened? What did the court decide? So, long story short, the Illinois Supreme Court said that this group of Nazis, they did in fact have a First Amendment right to protest in Skokie.
During this lesson, students explored various protests and public rallies, and then reviewed Supreme Court cases dealing with protests, civil rights, community safety, and the First Amendment.
I agree with the Supreme Court because in the long run, their decision makes sense, because if you think about other protests that have happened since that event, then you could have made a lot of cases to try and cancel those protests, which completely defeats the first constitutional right.
Thank you once again to the North Salinas High School teacher, Mrs. Sarah White, the CSU MB facilitators, Kelsey Nordstrom Sanchez, Alexis Martinez, and Teresa Martinez, and the students of North Salinas High School. And of course, to all the teachers and students across Monterey County for your hard work and dedication to engaging in these important issues.
And now it is my pleasure and a true honor to introduce our keynote speaker, former Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta. Leon Edward Panetta served as the 23rd Secretary of Defense from July 2011 to February 2013. Before serving as Secretary of Defense, Mr. Panetta served as the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency from February 2009 to June 2011. Mr. Panetta led the agency and managed human intelligence and open source collection programs on behalf of the intelligence community. While he was director of the CIA and military located and killed Osama bin Laden, who was the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks on our country. Secretary Panetta has dedicated much of his life to public service. Before joining the CIA, he spent 10 years co-directing with his wife Sylvia, the Leon and Sylvia Panetta Institute for Public Policy, based at California State University, Monterey Bay. The Institute is a nonpartisan, not-for-profit center that seeks to instill in young men and women the virtues and values of public service. In March 2006, he was chosen as a member of the Iraq Study Group, a bipartisan committee established at the urging of Congress to conduct an independent assessment of the war in Iraq. From July 1994 to January 1997, Secretary Panetta served as the Chief of Staff to President William Clinton. Prior to that, he was the director of the Office of Management and Budget, a position that built on his years of work on the House Budget Committee. Secretary Panetta represented California's 16th, now 17th congressional district from 1977 to 1993, rising to House Budget Committee chairman during his final 4 years in Congress. Early in his career, Mr. Panetta served as a legislative assistant to Senator Thomas Kuchel of California, special assistant to the Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, director of the U.S. Office for Civil Rights, and executive assistant to Mayor John Lindsay of New York. He also spent 5 years in private law practice. He served as an Army intelligence officer from 1964 to 1966 and received the Army Commendation Medal. Secretary Panetta holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science and a law degree both from Santa Clara University. He was born on June 28, 1938, in Monterey, where his Italian immigrant parents operated a restaurant. Later, they purchased a ranch in Carmel Valley, a place Secretary and Mrs. Panetta continued to call home. The Panettas have 3 grown sons and 6 grandchildren. Please help me in welcoming former Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta.
Thank you very much, Pam, Judge, for your kind introduction. And it's a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to be able to be here and be part of this program. I'm honored for several reasons. First of all, because I'm a lawyer and was trained as a lawyer. But more importantly, I was the son of Italian immigrants. My parents came here in the early 30s, like millions of other immigrants to this country, and managed to settle here in Monterey. I used to ask my father and mother why they came all of that distance, why they came thousands of miles to a strange country. And although they came from a poor area of Italy, they still had the comfort of family and friends. Why would you travel all of that distance to come to a strange land? And I never forgot my father's response, which was that my mother and he believed they could give their children a better life in this country. And that's the American dream. That's what we want for all of you, is the ability to be able to have a better life. And that's what my parents wanted for my brother and I. That's why we went first in our family to go to University of Santa Clara, and then ultimately to law school. My brother became a lawyer, practiced in this area. I became a lawyer, used my law degree not only in practice, but in my career in government. We have 3 sons. 2 of our 3 sons are lawyers. Chris is a lawyer here in Monterey with the law firm of Fenton Keller. And my youngest son, Jimmy, is a lawyer, served as a member of the DA's office here in Monterey, and, as you know, is now the congressman in this area. In addition, Jimmy's wife, Carrie, is not only a lawyer, somebody who served in the DA's office in Alameda, but she's also a judge in this area. So my family is very much a part of the law and our system of justice. I'm also honored because of all of you that are here. The judges that are here, the lawyers that are here, the citizens, but most of all, you, the students. You've come together on this law day to learn what the rule of law is all about, but more importantly, to celebrate the importance of the law to our lives and to our democracy. And I'm also honored because we are discussing the rule of law at a time of particular importance in our country, a time in the history of our country where we really need to remind ourselves of how critical the rule of law is to the very survival of our country and our democracy. The Constitution of our country, of the United States, begins with the words, "We the people," we the people. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. It's in the Constitution. We the people, in order to have a more perfect union, need to establish justice. We need to ensure domestic tranquility. We need to provide for the common defense. We need to promote the general welfare. And we need to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do hereby ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States. Those are the words in the preamble to the Constitution. The Constitution is our founding document. It lays out the laws that govern our democracy. Laws to establish three separate but equal branches of government: the executive, the legislative, the judicial. Laws flow from each of those branches. Laws flow from the states and from the cities across our country. All create a panoply of laws in the United States that represents the rule of law, the rule of law, that tries to bring order to our democracy, to support our rights and our freedoms. Because the reality is that without order, there is no freedom. There is no freedom. There is only chaos. We saw that chaos. We saw that chaos on January 6th, when a mob attacked the United States Capitol, destroyed property. People were killed. Our democracy came to a halt. Our nation was at risk of surviving. We realized how fragile our democracy was on that day, that a mob could attack the Capitol of the United States and bring our democracy to a halt. I never thought I would see anything like that in my life. But it happened. And thank God, there were those elected leaders who swore an oath. Our elected leaders swear an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. We raise our right hand. Whatever job we get at the federal level, whatever job we have in the Congress as an elected official, we swear the same oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And thank God there were those that day who had the courage to stand by that oath and protect our Constitution and make sure that our Constitution was implemented in order to protect our democracy. Protect our democracy. The history of our country And our history is now well over 200 years. The history of our country is the history of our ability to survive. Because there were those who had the courage and the bravery to preserve, protect, and defend our Constitution. There are a lot of people in a lot of different places, not just lawyers or judges. There are a lot of people who defend our system of justice. Our brave warriors in uniform, those who serve our country. They've been called upon to fight and, yes, to die for their country and for our Constitution. We have had to fight against enemies, foreign and domestic, in order to protect the rule of law. The Civil War, something you're all learning about in school, goes right to the heart of our Constitution. Because there were some states and individuals in those states who did not believe that we are all created equal by God and that we are equal under the law. And so we fought a very bloody war in this country between the North and the South. A bloody war to preserve the Constitution, to be able to preserve the law and the belief that our Constitution has to rule all of us in this country, wherever we're at. World War II was fought because there are tyrants out there who did not believe in human dignity. People like Hitler, who did not believe in the principle of equal justice under the law. Hard to believe that 80 years later, there is another tyrant, Putin, who invaded a sovereign democracy, Ukraine, because he did not believe that the people of Ukraine had the right to decide how to govern themselves. And so he has invaded that country just as Hitler invaded Poland and Czechoslovakia, because he said they don't have the right to decide. People shouldn't have the right to decide the law and how to abide by the law. And so there were those who fought and died in order to make sure that that would not happen. People have fought on battlefields across our history to preserve the rule of law. People have fought in courtrooms, in Congress, in legislatures across the country. Martin Luther King fought for justice on the streets of America to try to pursue the principle of equal justice. There are 2 black members of the Tennessee legislature today who are fighting for the right to express themselves. They're elected members of a legislature. that decided that these members could not speak to the principle of gun control and the concern about guns. And so they were kicked out. Thank God they've been returned, and they're back in the legislature and back fighting for what they believe in. There's a transgender member of Montana, the Montana legislature, as we speak, that has been barred from the floor of that legislature in order to represent the people who elected her. But she continues to fight to represent their rights. There are those in law enforcement who every day are fighting to make sure that the rule of law is enforced. It is we the people, all of our strengths, and yes, all of our weaknesses. People with courage, people who have faults. But it is we the people. In order to form a more perfect union, determine whether or not we will have justice in this country or whether we will have injustice. It's in the hands of the people, you and I. The words that are inscribed over the Supreme Court are equal justice under the law. Those are the words above the Supreme Court. For those of you that ever get a chance to go to Washington, the Supreme Court is right near the Congress. The words above the Supreme Court, equal justice under the law. Those are important words, but they are just words. What gives these words life is up to each of us, you and me. We determine whether or not we really will have a country that provides equal justice under law. I learned that lesson a long time ago. I learned that lesson when I was director of the U.S. Office for Civil Rights. This goes back to 1970. My first job in Washington, when I left the Army, I was actually stationed here at Fort Ord. When I left the Army, I went back to Washington as a legislative assistant to a U.S. Senator from California, Tom Kuechel. Kuechel was a Republican from California. He was a moderate Republican, something we don't have many of these days. But he came from, there's a tradition in California called the Hiram Johnson tradition. Hiram Johnson was a governor who believed, even though he was a Republican, believed in the rights of the people, labor rights, civil rights, equal rights. And there were many like that, moderate Republicans. And Kuechel and other moderate Republicans worked with Democrats at that time in the Congress to draft and pass civil rights laws. This was the time when the great civil rights laws were passed. And as a legislative assistant, I was asked to work with a bipartisan group of other legislative assistants to draft the civil rights laws and to work to get them passed, which they were. Landmark legislation, establishing equal rights in our country. So because of that background, when a new administration was elected, I was appointed director of the Office of Civil Rights because I'd worked on civil rights legislation. My responsibility was to enforce equal education laws, to break down what was then the dual school system in the South. At that point, there were 17 southern and border states who by law had separated black children from white children in their school system. Different schools. Different schools. And it was because the Supreme Court looked at that situation in Brown versus the Board of Education and decided that separate schools are inherently unequal. Very important decision by the Supreme Court. And so as a result of that, my responsibility was to enforce equal education laws, particularly targeted at those districts that had separated black and white children, to break down that system, to have one education system where children could go to any school, regardless of their race. Not easy, by the way. Not easy. I mean, for close to 200 years, these districts had separated their children. Black children went to school that was called the Booker T. Washington School. White children would usually go to schools called the Robert E. Lee School. And now my responsibility was to work with local officials to say that cannot continue. We've got to allow kids to be able to go to school together, regardless of their race. So I work with local school districts to develop desegregation plans that would allow children to be able to do that. Not easy. It was not easy. You can imagine that there were those who for a long time had seen separated school systems in their community. So it was not easy. My leverage was not just the law. It was not just Brown versus the Board of Education. But I also had the authority to cut off their federal money if they maintained segregated schools. And that was the leverage to try to get them to abide by the law. I swore an oath to enforce the law. I was young, and yes, I was naive, because I believed that even if there were those who did not agree with the law, they would follow the law. And indeed, there were a lot of brave superintendents, elected officials in the South who were willing to put, in many ways, their career, their reputation on the line in order to do the right thing and desegregate those school systems. But there were also those who bitterly opposed what was happening. And they were using whatever political power they could in order to make sure that the law would not be enforced. Unfortunately, one of those who cut a deal with those who were opposed was the President of the United States, Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon cut a deal called the Southern Strategy with Southern Republicans. In exchange for their support, he was running for president. In exchange for their support, as president, he said, I will back off of strong civil rights enforcement. After I became director of the Office for Civil Rights, I was made aware of the deal on Southern Strategy. But I made the point, candidates make all kinds of promises when they're running for president. But when they become president, they raise their right hand and swear an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. And I said, I expect that presidents will still follow the law. What happened was that there was continued pressure on me as civil rights director not to enforce the law. And I realized that I was going to have to make a very difficult choice. The choice was whether I would back off on law enforcement, improve my career in politics, or whether I would continue to enforce the law and probably get fired. And I remember going home and talking to my wife Sylvia and saying, you know, I'm facing a very tough decision. And she said to me, she said, Leon, you have to do what you believe is right. And so I made the decision that I was going to continue to enforce the law. One morning, the Washington Post was on our doorstep. I picked up the Washington Post, and there was an article in the Washington Post. It said, Panetta resigns as director of the Office for Civil Rights. I hadn't resigned. So I went to see the secretary of HEW, and I said, there's a story in the paper that says I resigned. It's not true. You know that. And he said, no, it's just a rumor. Don't worry about it. Just tell the press that you haven't resigned, and let's move on. Unfortunately, at the White House that day, they had a press briefing for the press. Ron Ziegler was the press secretary. And they asked Ziegler, what about this story that Panetta has resigned? And Ziegler said to the cameras, it's true, he's resigned. So when that happened, I decided that I would resign. Although everybody understood that I had been fired. I have never regretted that decision because I believe that it was more important to enforce the law in this country than to simply play politics. On this law day, we gather to pay respect to the rule of law, to equal justice under the law, to our Constitution. It is said that we are a nation of laws, and we are. But we are only a nation of laws if we, the people, are willing to fight to make sure that we are a nation of laws. I learned a lesson the hard way. But I also learned that in this country there are others who shared my beliefs, and others came forward, and they fought to enforce the law, and they fought to give children an equal education. Progress was made, and the law made a difference in the lives of thousands upon thousands of children who now have a chance to achieve the American dream. Look, I understand that our democracy and those responsible for our democracy are not always perfect. Boy, we've seen that in these last few years. People at the highest levels of our government who have basically ignored the law. So our democracy is not always perfect. But God knows that in our democracy, there are those who threaten it by not abiding by the rule of law, that ignore our Constitution. But the reason America survives is that for every devil, there are 10 of our better angels in this country. 10 good people, judges who respect the law and are willing to do the right thing, lawyers who embrace the law and fight for their clients to give them the rights that they're entitled to, the police who enforce the law, sometimes under the toughest of circumstances, elected leaders who truly believe that when they raise their right hand, they swear an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. And citizens and students who respect the rule of law and seek justice for everyone. America has survived because we, the people, have established and fought for justice. On this law day, let us each pledge that we will never stop fighting to bring life to those words that are inscribed above the Supreme Court. Equal justice for all under the law. God bless you and God bless our country.
Thank you, Secretary Panetta. It is inspiring to have someone of your caliber to come to share with us your story, your experiences. It's also humbling to see someone who's dedicated a lifetime to upholding the law, but also dedicated himself to our country and to Monterey County. At this time, we are going to invite 6 highly regarded members of our legal profession and our community. We can hold the applause. I'm going to introduce all 6 of them, and we can show our appreciation for them as a group. The first is the Honorable Rafael Vasquez, Judge of the Monterey County Superior Court. Judge Vasquez took his oath as a judge on January 2nd, 2018. He is currently the supervisor of the criminal division. And let me assure you, it's never easy to supervise fellow judges. It is like herding cats. He is also assigned to a felony trial assignment and does felony arraignments, among other responsibilities. He serves as a mentor to many young people in Salinas and in Monterey County through volunteering. He participates in various youth sports organizations. He serves as a mentor to students attending Hartnell College and who attend the University of San Francisco. Judge Vasquez volunteers providing advocacy to victims of domestic violence, including programs focused on protecting farm worker women from sexual assault in the fields. Judge Vasquez, if you'd like to come join us up here. We also have Monterey County Sheriff Tina Nieto. She was elected to the office of sheriff and sworn in on December 30th, 2022. Before being elected as the first Latina sheriff in the history of the state of California and the first female sheriff for Monterey County, she served as the police sheriff for Marina, California, after spending 28 years with the Los Angeles Police Department. Sheriff Nieto has over 33 years in law enforcement and is currently a California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training Commissioner. She served 8 years with USAR, obtaining the rank of captain. Sheriff Nieto, if you would please join us. We have Berkeley Brannon, who is the Chief Assistant District Attorney for the Monterey County District Attorney's Office. Mr. Brannon has been a prosecutor since 1987 and a supervisor in the DA's office for the last 22 years. For 10 of those years, until 2020, he taught criminal law and procedure at the Monterey College of Law. Mr. Brannon has tried numerous cases, including high-profile murder cases here in Monterey County. Chief Brannon. We have Jeremy Zubai, who is the Chief Deputy Public Defender with the Monterey County Public Defender's Office. Mr. Zubai has been a criminal defense attorney since his admission to the bar. Prior to working for the Public Defender's Office in Monterey County, Mr. Zubai was a member of the private bar defending clients in the United States federal courts. Mr. Zubai's areas of interest include constitutional law and the search and seizure clause of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Mr. Zubai, if you'd like to also join us here. Chief Probation Officer Todd Keating. He's been with Monterey County Probation Department for 32 years, where he began as a deputy probation officer and rose through the ranks to supervisor, director, and assistant chief. In 2019, he was named Chief Probation Officer, working on both the adult and juvenile divisions at every level of the department throughout his career. Chief Probation Officer Todd Keating. And finally, we have Lisa Cisneros. She is a magistrate judge with the United States District Court, Northern District of California. Magistrate Cisneros graduated from Brown University in 2001, received her law degree from UC Berkeley School of Law in 2007. Magistrate Cisneros has fought for the rights of the LGBTQ community among the agriculture community in Salinas. Welcome all 6 of our panelists. So many of the students here may be considering a career in either law or government or law enforcement, and I'm going to ask each member of our distinguished panel to take a few minutes to share a little bit about themselves and to describe the career path they took that brought them here today and to the positions you currently hold. Sheriff Nieto.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Tina Nieto. I am your Monterey County Sheriff, and we do wear cowboy hats. You know, my path is an unusual path. I grew up in a large Hispanic family. I grew up actually in Southern California. My mom, I was a latchkey kid when I was young. My mom had to go back to work in a plastics factory to help, put a roof over her head and food on our table. I worked 2 to 3 jobs to put myself through college. Why? Because my parents at that time, they didn't realize there was a path for people. We didn't have the role models, the mentors that were in this industry. When I was your guys' age, you didn't see sheriffs and you didn't see a lot of women in policing in the profession. But I knew that I wanted to do something to help people. We may not have had a lot of money, but there was a lot of love in my household. And my parents did teach me that we need to be responsible people to, our communities. And so we were involved in a lot of things, even as children, to help out the community. And like many of you, when I was in high school, because I know one of the questions that's going to come up is like, how do you pick your career? I was like a lot of you guys. I jumped around in different majors in community college, and I'm a product of the public state system because I'm a native to California. And I ended up landing in law enforcement. So I just want to leave this with you as we move on to the next person, is that, You know, whatever you choose to do in your life, be the best at that. And don't let people tell you you can't do it. Double down when they tell you that and say, you know what, I can. Because had I listened to those folks, I would not be your sheriff today. So thank you.
Thank you. Magistrate Cisneros.
Good morning, everyone. I'm United States Magistrate Judge Lisa Cisneros, and I grew up in Salinas, just down the road. In terms of my pathway to the bench and my legal career overall, I would say I didn't grow up or even start my legal career anticipating that I would become a federal judge at any point, nor was that my goal for a long time. But I have to say that I had a wonderful career as an attorney, and after law school at Berkeley, I was really excited to return to Salinas and to begin my legal career at California Rural Legal Assistance. And my wife, she worked down the street from the CRLA office in East Salinas at La Paz Middle School and later at Alisal High School. And it was a really beautiful place to grow up in Salinas and then to work. And I did leave Salinas for college. I went to the East Coast, and so I had a chance to live in other parts of the country. And you know, I think just not everybody knows about Monterey County or Salinas in particular, but the community, the history, the beauty of the surroundings. It was just a wonderful opportunity to come back home and start a meaningful career in civil rights law. And I did that for many years, but I did also feel that I needed to develop more professional skills in the courtroom. So I did return to San Francisco, and I worked both with a federal judge for 2 years in what we call a clerkship, and I practiced in downtown San Francisco at a major law firm doing large, complex civil cases throughout the country. And so I really had a blended career, I would say. On one hand, handling LGBT civil rights cases and farm worker cases, in what we call legal aid, which is providing legal services for free to low-income individuals and families. So that was part of my career, and then the other part of my career was larger, more complicated cases, we call them class actions or mass torts, as well as working for the California Attorney General's office. So if you are a person who has a lot of varied interests and is adventurous, the law can be a good field because as an attorney, you can practice different areas of law, handle different types of cases, and you can have a career where you're always learning something new and meeting exciting and inspiring other attorneys and judges and also clients. So eventually, mid-career, about 15 years in, some of my mentors and colleagues encouraged me to think about joining the bench and becoming a judge. And at that point, I felt like I had a lot of expertise and perspective to bring to the bench, and that I have a very calm, even-handed demeanor. And so anyhow, I started applying and sure enough, was offered a position. And this position is selected by the district judges in the Northern District of California. There's over 20 of them, so they have a rigorous screening process and interview finalists, and then vote on who they'd like to become a United States Magistrate Judge. So that's how I landed my position and started in September 2022.
Judge Vasquez.
Good morning, everyone. And just like Judge Cisneros, I never envisioned that I would find myself in a position where I was a Superior Court judge. Growing up where I grew up, coming from the background that I have, that certainly was not part of the plan and wasn't on the radar. I grew up in a family of immigrants. My grandparents and my parents immigrated from Mexico. My grandparents were braceros. My paternal and maternal grandfathers, they both worked in the bracero program. My parents came over here at an early age, and they were working out in the agricultural fields. And in my family, my parents, my grandparents, basically all the relatives that I have on both sides of the family, they didn't have anything greater than a 6th grade education. So I'm the first in my family to get beyond the 6th grade, the first to graduate from high school, and to have the opportunity, the blessing to go to a university and to go beyond to graduate school. Growing up in my neighborhood, I'm from South Monterey County, so I was born in King City. I was raised down in King City and Greenfield. That's where I grew up. And during the time that I was growing up, during my childhood, once I started school and I began to learn how to speak English, I had a lot of responsibilities that were put on my plate at a very young age. I had to serve as an interpreter for my parents whenever they would have, say, appointments, dental appointments, medical appointments, or if they had certain meetings that they had to go to. Even at the age of 7 or 8 years old, I would be right there beside my parents helping to translate for them. Oftentimes when my parents were working, not 1 but 2 jobs, sometimes 3, depending upon the season, I was the one that was delegated with the responsibility of having to serve as a surrogate father to my 3 younger siblings. And in essence, I was like a young dad having to prepare meals for them, take them to school. Whenever there were teacher conferences, I would have to go over there, meet with the teachers to try to help get the message communicated to my parents while they were working. So I had a lot of real experiences that were given to me at a young age, and we didn't have a lot of means. Things were pretty tough growing up in our household, and things were not always very pleasant between me and my father, and we had some pretty difficult challenges growing up because of a lot of the pressure and the stresses that he had to deal with, and a lot of different challenges that I had to deal with. So there was a lot of adversity that we had to deal with as a family. That, coupled with the fact that when I hit adolescence, growing up down in South Monterey County, that was during the time in the early 90s when you started seeing a real difference on the street in terms of the activity of criminal street gangs. So at the time, we had a lot of Norteño gangs that were being pushed by Nuestra Familia to get out there, actively recruit more people, and I had to deal with having a lot of pressure to try to join some of these gangs. I was fortunate, unlike many of my friends, that I had different avenues that I can pursue that steered me away from the street. I had the benefit of being very active in sports. So my coaches, they would routinely pick me up, take me to different tournaments, take me to different events to keep me off the street, keep me busy. So I would play football, baseball, basketball, soccer. I'd go swimming, learned how to play tennis, whatever I could do to keep me off the street. And I had a lot of adult mentors that were involved in Rotary or Lions Club, the Elks Club, a lot of these folks who were ex-veterans who served this country and were retired, who gave their time to look out for me, to look out for my siblings, to look out for some of the people in my community that were interested in pursuing a path that wasn't the path that involved gangs and drugs. I've had a lot of friends that have been killed because of gang violence, or that have died because of the use of drugs, overdosing because of the use of drugs. I've had friends that have been through a cycle, even to this day, where they're in and out of the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, constantly getting arrested and imprisoned. I've had friends that are just strung out, fighting that battle to try to stay clean, but can't stay clean because of their addiction and the insatiable desire to use controlled substances. You know, those were a lot of my experiences growing up. I was constantly getting into fights just to steer clear of a lot of these people that were trying to drag me into that lifestyle. But I was fortunate that, again, I was active in sports, and then my teachers in high school were absolutely dynamic in reaching out to me and serving as mentors, teaching me about different opportunities, giving me different lessons, different perspectives on different issues, from liberal perspectives to moderate perspectives, conservative perspectives. I had the benefit of learning a lot of different things that I never once thought of. I went from high school in King City High School to Hartnell College, and mind you, when I was in high school, I also had to work on the weekends, and I also had to work in the summers, out on the fields, moving irrigation pipe, or in construction sites, digging ditches, whatever I could do to make money, to buy my school clothes, to provide for my younger siblings, to help out my parents. And then when I went to college, I was working full-time, went to school at Hartnell, was playing baseball there as well. And I spent about 3 years there because, again, I couldn't do a full-time course load given that I was working full-time, providing for myself and also still helping out my parents. From Hartnell College, I went to San Jose State University. And again, working full time, 40 hours over 3 days, and then going to school the rest of the week. And I was a criminal justice major, and I went to a program where I had the benefit of meeting a lot of outstanding professors that really gravitated towards me. And the thing is, throughout my life, I've been very, very fortunate and blessed that I don't necessarily go out and seek people, but a lot of these folks have come to me and offered to help me. And I'm very grateful and thankful for that, because it's because of them that they've been able to educate me and teach me and guide me and give me opportunities and open doors for me that have really made a tremendous difference in my life and my family's life. But at San Jose State, they were wonderful. Great people that looked out for me, introduced me to a lot of people in the legal profession. I graduated at San Jose State University with a bachelor's degree. Just to let you know, my workload, the grind that I had to go through because of my circumstances was one where my first semester I took 24 units. I had 8 classes. Second semester, 21 units. 21 units the following semester. I took that course load while working full time, while commuting from Salinas to San Jose, because I had to be nearby home again to help out my family and provide. So again, just grinding every day just to be able to achieve the dream that I had of being able to get a college degree. I wanted to go to law school after a lot of encouragement from my professors who really pushed me to go to school and to study law. And at the time, it was too late for me to apply for law school, and I had to take the law school admissions test. So I didn't want to just burn a year and just sit back and not do anything, so I enrolled in a graduate program for a master's degree at San Jose State University. But the problem was that program was a 2-year program, and I didn't want to wait 2 years to go to law school. I wanted to do it after 1 year. So I doubled up on the units, and I knocked out my master's degree in 1 year as opposed to 2. Then I applied to law school and got accepted to the University of San Francisco School of Law. And my experience at that law school was the greatest academic experience that I've ever had. Outstanding professors, a curriculum that was just superb. They broke me down and built me back up and trained me to think in different ways that I never thought about before. And my experience there was one that was tremendous because of the people that I met, who are still friends to this day, mentors to this day, who paved the way to help get me jobs out of my first year of law school. Again, a great institution. After I graduated, I became a district attorney, deputy district attorney at the Alameda County District Attorney's Office in Oakland. There, as an attorney, I worked there for about 4 years, handled cases as serious as murder, a lot of the gang cases coming out of there, and also some sexual assault cases. Then I went to work for a law firm that I worked with when I was in law school as a law clerk. And this is the Kazin Law Firm, which is a products liability plaintiff's firm. And there I was representing people that were dying from cancer and suing Fortune 500 companies, sometimes 20, 30 different defendants in each of these cases, trying to get as much money as we can before these people died within a year. I was there for about 2 years. Then I came over to the Santa Cruz County District Attorney's Office based on some connections that I knew from some people, including the elected DA, Bob Lee. And there I worked as a prosecutor until my appointment to the bench. And I handled cases such as murder, handled a lot of criminal street gang cases, child molestation cases, adult sexual assault cases, and had a tremendous experience advocating for victims of crime throughout my experience at that office. And I was appointed to the bench in December of 2017, shortly before Christmas, sworn in on January 2nd of 2018 to serve the county where I was born and raised. And it's been an absolute honor and a privilege to serve on the bench and to maintain the duties and responsibilities that I have here in the community that I serve, where my family still resides, where many of my friends and a lot of my mentors from my youth still reside. So it's an honor and a privilege to be in that position at this time. And I encourage you all, if you're interested in the law, pursue the study of the law, because we need young people like you to fill in the ranks for the future generation and to continue to handle business in a manner that's dignified, that's respectful, and in a manner that best represents the best of what we have in our county. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Todd Keating. I'm the Chief Probation Officer. My story is much more boring than Judge Vasquez's, but I was raised in Salinas, grew up here, went to North High, graduated from North High. I think North High's up there. Yeah, there you go. Went to Hartnell, played football and track there, and eventually went to Fresno State and got my degree in criminology. I didn't have a master plan. I didn't know what I wanted to do even when I got to Fresno, but I took an introduction to criminology class, and I had a professor who was a probation officer at that time, and just the way that he discussed the role that the probation department played in the judicial system, it really appealed to me. You know, the probation department is, you know, it's right in the middle of everything. We work for the court, we work with the DA's office, the public defender's office, law enforcement, and you know, we get to be the voice of reason, is the way I like to look at it. You know, we don't advocate too strongly on one side or the other. We look at the situation as a whole, and you know, we try to base our decisions on that. When I graduated from Fresno State, I knew I wanted to come back home, so I did. The probation department at that time, this was in the late 80s, was very small. They weren't hiring, so I didn't know what I was going to do. So I took the CBEST test. I was a substitute teacher for 2 years, and then lo and behold, some positions came open in the probation department. I was fortunate enough to be hired, and that was in 1991. And I've been a deputy probation officer, rose through the ranks, and ultimately became chief in December of 2019. And that is my story. So if any of you want to talk to me after this, probation is a good career, and I think it fits the normal person to a T. Thank you.
My name's Chief Assistant DA Berkeley Brannon, and my story is also somewhat short on inspiration. But back when I was in college, I went to a small college called Colorado College, and you know, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, at first I wanted to be a writer, you know, and then I thought, well, maybe I'll be an economist, but you know, it turned out I couldn't understand economics, so I couldn't do that. So finally, you know, it gets towards the end of college, and you got to kind of figure out what you're going to do, right? And so, you know, a degree at Colorado College, you know, you really had a couple of choices. You could either be a waiter, or you could go to grad school. And so I figured, well, you know what? I would like to, my friends, you know, their dads were lawyers, and you know, they talked up being a lawyer, and I thought, well, you know, that would really be a, you know, that's a good thing to do. And the one thing I knew at that time, this thing I absolutely knew. I knew if I was going to go to law school that I was going to be a prosecutor. And the reason that I wanted to be a prosecutor is one of the things that I valued was the truth. And I wanted to do something where my job was to prove what happened, prove the truth, and hold people accountable for criminal misconduct. And this was so long ago that, believe it or not, prosecutors were thought of as the good guys. And nowadays, Jeremy, my colleague here, he's the good guy. I'm the bad guy. This is, and I'm telling you, we're doing the same things that we always did, but what society thinks of us has flipped. But one thing I do want to tell you is, you know, one thing that's different about being a prosecutor than being any other kind of lawyer is your job isn't to, you know, zealously represent your client no matter what. Most lawyers have to do that, whether they're, you know, representing a corporation, you know, criminal defendant. Their job is to represent that client and make sure that that client's wishes are carried through. As a prosecutor, we don't have a client like that. Our job is to do justice. It's to do the right thing. And by that, what I mean by that is, you know, it's not our job to just file a case because the police send it to us. It's not our job to do whatever the victim wants us to do in this particular case. We are definitely, you know, we know the victims. We talk to the victims. We're on the victim's side. But we have a higher purpose than that, and it's to really try to do justice. That may mean dismissing the case if there's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. If there is proof beyond a reasonable doubt, it means proceeding forward with the case. So, you know, you know, you may end up hearing a different version of what I've just described to you when you go to college, but we definitely need prosecutors. And if you want to change the system, you want to do something about our criminal justice system, being in a prosecutor's office is a good place to pursue that reform. So with that, I will turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Jeremy.
Despite his claim, nobody thinks Mr. Brannon is the bad guy. So I'm 17, and I'm a senior in high school in a little redneck town in Wisconsin, about 800 people. And there's one police officer in the whole town. His name is Gary. And unlike the policemen and policewomen I deal with now, they're not professional. Gary's not professional. I don't know if Gary actually has any training. But in addition to being the only police officer in our town, Gary's also dating a classmate of mine at the local high school. I don't know what the laws were back then. But. And apparently, I couldn't stand this woman. And apparently I had said something to her in the spring of my senior year that she took offense at. And lo and behold, for the last month of my senior year, every day when I was driving home, all of a sudden I would see the police lights. And Gary would pull me over. And Gary would make me get out of the car. Gary would handcuff me. Gary would put me in the back of the police car and basically tell me to leave his girlfriend alone. So this month experience at the end of my senior year made me want to do two things. One was become a lawyer. And especially interested in the rights of people who are arrested or arrested. And second, to get the hell out of that part of Wisconsin. So soon after I graduated, packed up, it was a Dodge Aspen station wagon, and drove to San Diego, where I went to school, ended up going to law school. And since then, I have practiced criminal defense. It is a great career. It is an exciting career. It is a fulfilling career, as is being a prosecutor. And I would encourage any of you who are interested in really the raw part of the law, the real where constitutional rights are litigated every day, where the Constitution really lives, is in the criminal courtroom. And we need lawyers on both sides. We need good, ethical lawyers on both sides. And I can't recommend this line of work enough.
All right, so prior to today, the students were asked to prepare some questions for our panelists. We have about 20 minutes left for the panel, so I am going to try to, we won't get through all our questions, but we have one from Javier Pantoa and Magistrate Cisneros. Is there one case that has affected you the most?
Well, I can't talk about any one particular case beyond what I would say on the record, but I would say I'm just past 6 months as a new judge, and for me, the criminal law cases are brand new, because before I joined the bench, I was a civil litigator or a civil attorney. So the issues that I was dealing with did not involve violations of criminal law generally. But now that is a significant part of my duties as a judge, handling pretrial proceedings, initial arraignments, initial appearances, arraignments, and detention hearings. And so I'm confronted with, on a regular basis, serious allegations of criminal wrongdoing related to firearms, drug sales, and financial crimes and so forth. And so I'm confronted with the public safety concerns that are embodied in our laws and the provisions of our law that are designed to safeguard and protect public safety, but also very important provisions of our Constitution that protect the rights of criminal defendants. And so every day that I'm dealing with those cases is a balancing act, and I have to give individualized consideration to each case, ensure that both sides has a thorough and fair hearing in front of me. And these are very sometimes difficult and issues in terms of you see the impact on the community of the alleged wrongdoing, and you see sometimes the struggles that some of these defendants are dealing with in terms of substance use disorder, mental illness, or what have you, or long-term struggles in life with lack of resources or support in their family. So, but all of that balancing act just, reminds me and, leads me to just really recommit to and double down on my commitment to fairly administering justice and ensuring that we have rule of law and that everyone gets a fair hearing in my court.
Thank you. Brianna Leone would like to ask, and I'm going to start with you, Sheriff Nieto, and if we can be succinct because we want to get as many panel members. We'd like to hear your perspectives from each of you. What is the hardest part of pursuing your career?
I think it's pretty obvious. I'm female, I'm Hispanic, I'm short, and I'm a lesbian. And I went into a profession where, well, joining the Los Angeles Police Department, no one was gay when I joined, and that's the truth. I was part of a group of young officers who stood up and said, we're here, and we make a difference, and we care about our communities as much as everybody else, and fought for rights, actually, for the LGBTQ community. It was actually Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York that actually fought for those rights for officers that were not like the norm. So what I can say, so everything in my life there's been roadblocks my entire life. And what it's taught me is resiliency. And we were talking about joining the profession. I grew up in a very chaotic household. Like I said, I was a latchkey kid. My father's an alcoholic. That's okay, he knows I talk about that. So we grew up with addiction and all the issues that I'm going to guess many of you guys share in your families without talking to you guys individually. So it's been a roadblock. But here's what it taught me. There were people that cared about me outside of my family to develop mentors that believe in you. It taught me resiliency. I can't tell you, I'm an elected official as the sheriff for you young people that don't know that. So I was elected by your parents or people that you know that can vote or can't vote. And when I first decided to run for sheriff, one of the things I got, which has been my whole life, you're an outsider. You weren't born in Monterey. What do you know about our county? Well, here's what I told people. I care about people. I know the law. I'm in my positions for a reason, and I fought a lot of stuff. So I just want to share with all of you guys out there, resiliency. Don't listen to the people who tell you you can't do it, because you can. And I'm living proof that, you got to suck it up sometimes, and it's hard. But if you really want it, then pursue it and like I said before, be the best that you can. Follow your bliss. So thank you.
Thank you. Magistrate. And if we could just hold the applause to the end of the entire panel, I think that would be, these are all worthy of applause. I'm happy to share my applause too, but let's just wait till the end. Magistrate Judge Cisneros. The hardest part of pursuing your career?
I think there's challenges at every point. They just change the nature of them. But I think one formative period was coming out of law school, because in law school, a lot of the instruction is through a book, and you read about the law, and then you show up in a large lecture class and debate it, but you're not actually practicing law at that point. And so the first year to 5 years are critical, and they can be really challenging because you're actually representing clients, you're learning how to appear in court, and you're hunting for another experienced attorney or peers who can encourage you and show you the way. And so there's always, people like that at different stages of our life who are generous with their time and easy to talk to and willing to share what it takes to be an effective lawyer. So I would say it was probably, a particularly challenging times in terms of honing my craft as an attorney, but it was also incredibly rewarding working on Williams Road in Salinas and being back home after being away for so many years. So I absolutely echo what Sheriff Nieto says, that even if you hit a rough patch, maybe a couple days, a couple weeks, or a couple months, don't give up, because pushing through that, you're going to be that much stronger and wiser and more experienced, and that's what it takes to find success.
Judge Vasquez.
I think about the time that I spent just going to school after high school. Just like Sheriff Nieto didn't have people within her family structure, I didn't have that either, and I had to rely on people outside of my family to help me out. But I was on my own. My parents weren't supporting my pursuit of going to school because they didn't know any better, and they wanted me to help work, provide for the family. But I was on my own, working full-time. So working full-time, 40 hours, plus a full course load in school, whether it was at Hartnell or during my undergrad studies at San Jose State University or in the graduate program for my master's or in law school, I always worked 40 hours when I was in school, and that's 40 hours that I couldn't dedicate to studying. And that's where I was operating under minimal sleep, and I learned how to do that. Sometimes I sleep maybe 2-3 hours at best, and then I was forced to commute just to get to school. And what time I had to be disciplined to put on any extra time I had to dedicate myself to studying. And what's challenging is that I'm not gifted with the ability to be able to read, say, one case and then commit that to memory, and that's all I have to do, and I know it. Sometimes I got to read a case 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 times. Then I might have to go back and reread it again. So all that time you have to put in, it gets really challenging when you also have to work full time, or you have to commute 4 hours round trip to get to and from your school. And then on top of that, try to help out your young siblings. On top of that, try to help out other family and friends that need help. So balancing all of those responsibilities while I was on that academic journey to get to my career path, for me, that was the real hard part. That was a grind. And a lot of people that I went to school with, they dropped out and they couldn't hang. And for many of you, you have to understand that you're going to be confronted with some challenges that are going to make it very difficult. Don't take the easy way out and then hit that latch on the parachute and bail out. You got to stay in there and keep grinding, keep achieving your dream, figure out how to get it done.
I'll talk about the difficulties in pursuing a profession in probation or any law enforcement, and that really is the background investigation. And I'm not going to talk too much about my difficulties, because when I was hired, that process was completely different. Everything I said or did wasn't recorded. There was the internet. It might have been invented by then, I don't know. I didn't know what it was. So I mean, because growing up, I did and said a lot of stupid things, and fortunately, I grew from those experiences and didn't get in too much trouble, and I was able to pursue this career. So the good news for you is, even though your whole lives have been recorded, there's plenty of ways to redeem yourself, and the best advice I can give you is, if you decide to pursue this career, think twice before you do and say things that you might think are funny, and they probably are at the time, but they can come back to bite you.
Yeah, don't get me started on that one. The hardest thing, being in Judge Butler's court's no picnic, I can tell you that. Actually, we're good friends. I'm going to flip it around to something that's easy. And it's easy because we're lucky, and I'm going to try and tie it into one of the cornerstones of Law Day, which is civility and collaboration. Really what prosecutors and defense attorneys do most of the time is actually collaborate. Most of these cases don't go to trial, And so we're really working together along with the judge, trying to see if we can find a resolution to this case that's satisfactory to both sides. And we're very lucky here in Monterey County. In some counties, you know, the prosecutors and the defense attorneys really do fight. I mean, they really don't, you know, they really fight each other all the time. And that's not necessarily best for the client. It's certainly, you know, not great to be in that type of environment. When you collaborate and when you're civil and when you're able to work with the bench and the defense attorney on the other side, it makes everybody's job easier and I think gets us closer to justice. We do go to trial sometimes, and in that scenario, again, we're civil, you know, but now, you know, we're between the lines, right? And it's sort of like a hockey game, maybe. You know, we don't actually get into fist fights, but, you know, we are, you know, each arguing our case. You know, we're putting on our evidence, and while we're civil, I don't know that we're collaborating at that moment. There are things that we collaborate on, even during the course of a trial, but I think most of this, quite frankly, in this county is really due to Jeremy and his boss, Sue Chapman. And so I really appreciate being able to work with our public defender's office here. And also we're very lucky. The bench is outstanding.
I think for me it was self-doubt. Like I said, I came from a place with very little sophistication, and I wanted to become a lawyer. And I saw lawyers as, I didn't know any lawyers growing up. I didn't, you know, I knew some farmers and that was about it. So, you know, I didn't think maybe I didn't belong because I wasn't as sophisticated, you know, because I hadn't had certain experiences growing up. I hadn't traveled, but I found if you just dress the part, show up on time, be polite, you can do it. So, and I say that to all of you. I mean, you're much more sophisticated than I was. If this is something you want to do, it's just a matter of putting in the time, putting in the effort. You can do it. I'm no genius. I just put in the work. So that's what I would say, self-doubt.
Rogelio is curious to know, and we'll have one law from each of you. Have any new laws passed lately? And that's very funny for us because there are an extraordinary number of laws that have passed lately that have dramatically changed the legal groundwork as we know it. Sheriff Nieto.
So actually, and then this is good advice for you guys. So for those of you who want to go into law enforcement, the laws are changing, and it's got one law that changes that at some point in about a year and a half, because I sit on the Commission for Post, which oversees policing in the entire state. I'm one of 5 chiefs or sheriffs that help make policy for our entire state. And you're going to need some college to become a police officer. Right now, you can have a high school diploma, and if you're 20 and a half, you can apply to be a police officer, sheriff, a deputy sheriff, go into custody. But because of the law change, you guys, your generation, the people sitting here, you're gonna need at least 60 units, which is equivalent to an AA, in order to even be considered to go into this profession. So, criminal justice is an easy major. Don't groan. I hear the groaning out there. And it's fun, and it's a lot of fun. So pursue your higher education if you want to go into this field. You don't have to do 8 years like some of the smart people on this panel. You just need at least that AA in order just to even join the field.
Thank you.
One new law that jumped out at me recently when I was reading the paper were some changes that permit certain inmates who have been in the correctional system here in California and who did work fighting wildfires to actually pursue firefighting positions once they've left prison. And so there's been some changes in law to facilitate that career path for individuals who were previously incarcerated. And that jumped out at me because now that I'm a new judge handling a criminal docket, I see the number. Of course, I was aware of it beforehand, having been in the community and read the papers and, from family and friends that we have a large incarcerated population. But that law jumped out to me in terms of what are the pathways for people who have criminal convictions into fulfilling careers that make a real difference for the public.
The law that comes to mind, based on the amount of petitions that I often receive and have to process and then put on my court calendar, relates to a recent change in the law concerning murder as to aiders and abettors and the natural and probable consequence doctrine. So we have a lot of people that are currently incarcerated in the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation who were previously convicted of murder, either on a plea or after a jury trial, and also convicted of attempted murder or manslaughter. And they're filing petitions for the court to reconsider whether or not the district attorney's office can prove the case based on the new changes in the law. And if they're unable to do so, then they're entitled to get a dismissal of those charges and then to have their sentence recalled and then be resentenced on the remaining charges. And I've had some cases that involve petitions for murder cases that occurred from the late 80s, and you don't have any witnesses that are around, including even the investigators who originally handled the investigation in those cases. I've had several from like the early 80s, mid 80s, early 90s, and it's one recent change, and we've seen an uptick in several petitions that have been coming through each of our felony courtrooms, so we can handle that under 1172.6 of the Penal Code.
Well, the biggest change that has occurred for the probation department has been SB 823, which was signed by the governor in 2020. So my whole career as chief has been spent trying to implement this law. And what 823 is the law that closed down the Division of Juvenile Justice, which is the state-run facility that historically had housed the most serious offenders, juvenile offenders. And for many of you might not know, the probation department, in addition to supervising individuals in the community, also runs the 2 juvenile institutions in Monterey County, that being Juvenile Hall and the Youth Center. So what this law did is it closed down DJJ, which we still have youth at DJJ right now. It closes for good June 30th of this year. So those individuals will be coming back. And where prior to this law, the oldest you could be in juvenile hall would be 19. Now it could be up to age 25. So that really changes the dynamic and the population that we will be housing at our juvenile hall. Not to mention the length of stay. Historically, juvenile hall has been a short-term facility, and now it's up to 7 years is an option now.
Yeah, there's been massive criminal justice reform in this state, over maybe the last 10 years, and I would just say, generally speaking, the theory is to get sentences less for crimes, and also get people out of prison. Instead of having them serve time in prison, they should serve it here locally in the jail. And all of this is sort of combined to with diversion and other remedial approaches to crime. It's to try to lessen incarceration. The law that Judge Vasquez mentioned is difficult for us because if you've ever done something, let's say you thought you were done, you completed some task, all these cases that we thought we had finished, turns out they're not, and the legislature doesn't give us more resources, more people, more money to pay people to do all this work that keeps coming back on a case that we thought was closed. So that's a little bit of a challenge as well.
I think the change in the law that I have spent a lot of time on is not a statute, but a Supreme Court case. There's a case called Brunn versus the New York Pistol Association. And that case did two things. The Supreme Court announced that, first, the Second Amendment includes the right to possess a firearm in public for your self-defense. And two, that the scope of a government's ability to regulate firearms has to have sort of a historical underpinning. So it has created a lot of legal questions as to specifically different states' laws, California's laws on restricting who can possess firearms and who can't. Are those laws still constitutional? And these are questions that have not been decided and I expect will be decided in the next few years. But that decision, in my opinion, has sort of put California's gun laws into question, at least.
All right, the one thing I am going to share, in addition to what our panelists have said, long term, is you see civility, collaboration. And the panelists have alluded to this, but the Public Defender's Office works with the District Attorney's Office, works with the Probation Department, works with the Sheriff's Department, works with the courts, we work with the agencies. We all work together. I will sit down with the district attorney, just the two of us. We will hash out issues. I'll sit down with the public defender, just the two of us. We will hash out issues. I've worked with both of those ladies for over 25 years, all of us in different capacities. I could call anyone on this panel and we could talk about an issue. We are not going to agree on everything, but we're going to come to a solution if we can. Don't burn bridges. Don't take positions that are so extreme that you think you have the right decision on everything and can't work with others who have a less strident position than you feel is necessary. The thing that Secretary Panetta said, the thing that you will never go wrong with in your entire life, do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. You will be true to yourself, your ethics, and take the consequences. They may be severe, but at the end of the day, you will have done the right thing. You can put your head on your pillow, and you can live to fight another day. I'd like us all to thank the panelists. Really appreciate it. And now I'd like to ask Chris DeVeers to come up to the stage so he can announce the essay and art winners.
Okay. Here we go. Time to honor all of our distinguished art and essay competitors. Thank you for your participation this year. There are cash prizes that you've earned, $500 for the first place winners, $300 for the second place winners, and $100 for the first place winners. And we'll hear from the first place winner of the art competition to describe their piece of art to you, and the essay competition winner will read their essay to you. So first, I would like to honor and invite to the stage to come and receive your prize and your certificate from North Salinas High School regarding the art competition. And if we could have that slide, please. So third place from North Salinas High School, we have America Aguilar. Please come to the stage. Okay. And whoa, shoot, there's your certificate, sorry. And these are active students, and this is live money, so please don't lose them and spend them all, and spend it all in one place. Thank you, and congratulations. You can go here and shake all of the panelists' hands, and yeah. If we could feature the second place slide, please, for the art competition. Second place from North Salinas High School, we have Edgar Javier Soto. Please come to the stage. Thank you, Edgar. Here's your prize. Careful, it's got live money in there. Okay, congratulations. You can just exit the stage this way. Thank you. And Our first place winner for the art competition, if we could please have that stage, and I'm going to invite you to not only come up and receive your certificate and prize, but to please just speak about your piece of art and how it pertains to this year's theme. I would like to invite to the stage Liliana Zavaleta from North Salinas High School. There you are. Congratulations. You could just speak.
So the Ladies' Justice statue represents equality, being impartial and fair treatment under law. So I wanted to draw something that represented law and democracy. And I felt a lawyer did that by fighting for justice and equality through legal means, which is why she's blindfolded, because lawyers should be unbiased when it comes to their cases and the people they represent.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Be careful, there's live money in here. Okay, congratulations. Thank you very much. Just go this way. Yeah, sure. Okay, now moving on to our essay competition winners. If I could please have to the stage third place, J.T. Haran from North Salinas High School. For those of you who would like to read these later, they'll be posted on the MCOE, Monterey County Office of Education, Law Day webpage, and you can go there and you can refer to these and read these. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Careful there. You got live. Yeah, let's give him another round of applause. Thank you. And our second place winner from Palma High School, not able to join us. I will give this. Oh, here you are. You are here. Okay. There you are. You made it. Okay. Second place from Palma High School, Thomas Ducker. There you go. Congratulations. And let me make sure I got the right certificate, and that's live cash money in there. Don't spend it all in one place.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can exit this way. Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, and now our first place essay competition winner, and we will have this individual read their essay. Please come to the stage, Roberto De Leon from Palma High School. Oh, good. And you came prepared with a copy of your essay. Excellent. Thank you.
My dad, Abelardo de Leon Jr., is my personal cornerstone. He has had an undeniable influence on my life. I couldn't be where I am today without him. I got my love of tacos from him, as well as an insatiable hunger for learning. He taught me right from wrong. He taught me how to appreciate the triumph of democracy. It's my dad who gave me the skills to understand and appreciate the cornerstones of democracy. A cornerstone is the foundational element of a structure or institution, something that defines and supports that structure, physically or otherwise. For example, rivers were the cornerstone of early American settlements at Jamestown. It was the slow, meandering nature of the rivers that allowed early colonists to survive and grow. And it was a fundamental part of their trade with Great Britain. In the Salinas Valley, agriculture is the cornerstone of life. The bountiful harvest provided by the land each year in turn provide her people with money that allows this town to prosper. With respect to democracy in the U.S., education and justice are the cornerstones that support our country by enabling its citizens to truly appreciate and understand the United States. Education is a cornerstone of democracy because it gives people the ability to understand and participate in our republic through the voting process and other ways. Thomas Jefferson once said that, quote, "An educated citizenry is a vital requisite for our survival as a free people." It was Jefferson's belief that education was the key to success of democracy in the United States. His belief was so strong, in fact, that he founded the University of Virginia in order to create knowledgeable citizens who understood democracy and its worth. My family also has close ties to education, with both of my parents having taught in a classroom for many years. Teachers have the ability to create critical thinkers and change the lives of their students. Education is the key to climbing the social ladder, keeping the American dream alive, and by extension, democracy. I saw firsthand the time and effort people put into ensuring their students receive a quality education. My mom would often take me to the store to buy notebooks and pencils for her students and pay out of her own pocket to ensure her students had the tools they needed to succeed in the classroom. The difference that education makes in a country cannot be denied. In other countries where education is not as freely offered, such as in Afghanistan, the people live in fear or ignorance of the inequalities and crimes that their governments commit. What connects education to democracy is the fact that it shows people that the government cares. Free schooling is what proves that the government looks out for Americans and does its best to ensure the happiness and success of its citizens through things such as preparing students to find their vocation. My mother taught me in 3rd grade, and many of my former classmates remember and respect her as a teacher. Education, in turn, allows everyday citizens to understand and thrive in our democracy. The benefits of education can be seen in the inspiring stories of the past, of brave migrants leaving their home country for opportunity in the U.S., or impoverished workers whose children benefit from an education. Those who are literate, critical thinkers who care about democracy are products of education. My own family can be cited as an example. My dad was the child of immigrants, neither of whom got an education past the elementary level. Being born in the U.S., my dad was able to learn and grow in a safe environment and would eventually give back by becoming a principal. The story of how education helps people is what inspires others to grow and prosper, which in turn creates an educated populace that supports democracy. By producing the next generation of leaders, education cements itself as a critical aspect of democracy. Justice, and more specifically accountability, is another important cornerstone of democracy because it gives people, no matter their position in society, faith that in our country, everyone is subject to the same law. The enforcement of laws decided on by the people is what differentiates the U.S. from a nation like Russia. That freedom from a tyrannical power is what allows progress to happen. One could argue that past laws highlight flaws in America's legal system, and they are correct. The U.S. as a nation has stood for principles of liberty and equality since its inception, and while not always meeting those principles, its citizens have struggled to forward the torch of progress and justice. Leaders such as Martin Luther King Jr. and LBJ were able to change the nation's laws so that the nation could become a more just society. When someone of prominence abuses their power, as with monopolies in the Gilded Age and corporations now, it is the law that ultimately levels them in and ensures a fair playing field for all. Elections themselves help hold officials accountable to the people. Those senators and representatives who act in a way contrary to the desires of their constituents or who are exposed to be bad people are able to be held account via the ballot, or the same way the courts would hear you or me. We can see examples of this today with Representative George Santos, whose alleged lies have been brought to light and is now facing the consequences of his actions. It is therefore vital to the survival of democracy that justice is able to prevail through government action in keeping the courts fair-minded and wise in their rulings. In order for society to function, it is imperative that citizens' faith in government is not compromised. Recent events have shown what happens when people become disillusioned with governments. Protesters and politicians claim that the Supreme Court has been politicized, and many of its decisions have been derided as regressive. This loss of faith is damaging because people begin to distrust the very institutions that exist to serve them. Those feelings ferment division and eventually violence, as seen in the January 6th insurrection, where thousands stormed the seat of a government they thought no longer stood for democracy. While many of the perpetrators of that insurrection were brought to justice, it should be noted that they assumed they were fighting for a just cause, to correct a perceived wrong within the justice system. Justice and the people's faith in justice are vital to the success of this nation. The ability to hold any and all to account under the same law is a vital piece of our democracy, and justice is hence another crucial cornerstone of democracy. My father got to enjoy these privileges because of what his father did. My grandpa, Abelardo de Leon Sr., knows what it's like to live a life deprived of education and justice. Born in Nuevo León, Mexico, he left at a young age to work in the United States as a part of their Bracero migrant labor program. The extent of his education only reached 3rd grade. There would be times that Border Patrol officers would storm his work camp looking for what were considered at the time illegal immigrants and beat him for no other reason than he was brown-skinned and couldn't speak English, despite the fact that he held the green card. For him, there was no recourse, no apology, no justice. As an immigrant and a man of color, he was denied those very rights which make this nation great. Working as a farm laborer in the fields of California, Arizona, Texas, and more, he worked tirelessly in order to ensure his children got to enjoy the things he seldom did: an education and justice. At 89 years old, he is the celebrated patriarch of a large family that benefits from the sacrifices he made and that enjoys the privileges of an education and justice, the cornerstones of democracy. The 2 cornerstones of my family are my father and my grandfather. In the case of the United States, its cornerstones are education and justice. For these 2 concepts are inextricably intertwined within the fabric of America and American society.
Wow, Roberto embodies the American dream, right? And it has a lot to be proud of there. And you've heard some incredible stories today. Yeah, exactly. Give him another round of applause. Your grandparents will be proud of you. Okay, this year we've added something new. If we could feature the next slide, please. These are all the participants in the art and essay contest. We had one of our strongest participation rates this year. We appreciate the Monterey College of Law for evaluating the essay and art competition winners. And we thank you all for your participation in this. This is one of the highlights for all of us, so thank you to the students and teachers who engaged in this. Next slide, please. And I'd like to just recognize some of the schools with the greatest participation rates. Ms. White from North Salinas High School, Ms. Power from Salinas High, Mr. Starrett from Palma High School, Mr. Dremel from Rancho Cielo, thank you, Mike Dremel, and Ms. Moyahan from Rancho Cielo. Thank you all for your participation. Yes, let's give them a round of applause. Next slide, please. This year, this was something new that we're offering. This was Judge Laverado's idea. We appreciate everybody who put this together. But the class with the greatest participation this year earned a class field trip to San Francisco to visit the federal courthouse, get a private tour, and have lunch there on location and meet several representatives from the federal court system. And they'll be chartering a bus up for the day, enjoying the city of San Francisco, spending time together. And this year, we want to honor from Palma High School, Mr. Starrett as the winning teacher in class for Palma High School. If you could just come forward. And if you could just, yeah, it's a little complicated. This way over here. Yeah, or you can just jump straight up on the stage. No. Oh my gosh, look at that. Woo! So if you could just briefly talk about Law Day and how it related to your classroom and maybe some of the benefits that you saw that this provided to your students and you.
Sure. Thank you. We're very appreciative of this honor. We started with the essay contest last year, and I encouraged obviously as many students as I could. We're actually an AP English class, and so we're constantly writing argument essays, and I'm encouraging the kids throughout the year to build on their knowledge, obviously, of arguments, but also their knowledge of their AP US history. And so this was a combination of both of those things, and a good opportunity for our students to be a part of this day, certainly, but also get a chance to engage with some of the things that they're going to be experiencing as adults and really thinking about bigger issues for the future. So we're very grateful to all the organizations that sponsored this competition and the event, and we're happy we get to go for a wonderful field trip soon.
Cool,
thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, we're almost to the end, and there's more for you. But I just once again thank you to all the students for your patience. I hope you found the program today to be engaging and informative. But I want to just once again thank you for spending your day with us and for your participation. We hope you found everything and all the brilliant people you got to hear speak today informative for you. I want to give a very special thanks to our MC, presiding judge, Pamela Butler. Let's give her a round of applause, please. I want to thank especially Dr. Deneen Gus, Monterey County Superintendent of Schools, and Monterey County Offices of Education support for this program. They've been involved since the very beginning. Let's give her a round of applause in the County Office of Ed, please. I want to thank the president of CSUMB for her time and for CSUMB opening up this incredible venue for us, Dr. Vanya Quinones. Let's give her a round of applause, please. And a very, very special keynote today, and just incredible message and story that was told there. Our former Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta. Big round of applause, please. To our incredible panel, the Honorable Rafael Vasquez, Monterey County Superior Court, Monterey County Sheriff, newly elected Sheriff Tina Nieto, Chief Assistant District Attorney Berkeley Brannon, Chief Assistant Public Defender Jeremy Dubai, and Todd Keating, Chief Probation Officer for Monterey County, Lisa Cisneros, Magistrate Judge with the United States District Court of the Northern District of California. Let's just give them a big round of applause once again. To all of our Superior Court judges, this event, the celebration of the rule of law, really came from our Superior Court judges, and I want to give them a big round of applause, but I want to specifically thank somebody, Judge Holsey, you, in addition to Judge Lavarado, have been a huge driving factor to all this, and thank you all, the judges, for your participation. One of our new partners that have been an incredible enhancement to this program, they invited us to speak to their board of directors this last week. They will be opening this up to all of their membership, and their foundation is open to getting behind this event and supporting us, but it's also been their time, Laura Elkington, but the addition of the Monterey County Bar Association has just been amazing, so thank you to the County Bar Association. I want to thank all of the local universities to really celebrate a true pathway in law, all different types of law. With our high schools, we have private schools, charter schools, migrant education. I want to give you a shout out, migrant education. Thank you for being here. We have our public schools here, and then the full array of that pathway in front of you all at Hartnell Community College, CSUMB, four-year school, now looking at the Panetta Institute and a master's in public policy, all the way up through the Monterey College of Law. So students, and you have a full pathway right here at your disposal in Monterey County in front of you, should you be interested in pursuing this. So I just want to give a warm thank you to all of our universities and education partners for participating in this. Thank you. And last, but certainly, well, actually, sorry, I've got a few more that I want to thank. I know it's getting long, but there's so many people really with this. The Law Day Steering Committee, led by Judge Lavarado, Judge Stephanie Holsey, their assistant behind the scenes, who has done just a tremendous amount of work, Norma Ramirez Zapata, Teresa Martinez, who we hired as a new project manager to help coordinate all of this. Let's give her a very special shout out to Teresa Martinez. Thank you. Another very special shout out to Rhonda Mercadell Evans. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you for making it happen here in this venue and really bringing CSUMB. Maren Christensen from Monterey College of Law and evaluating the essay and art competitions. Maren, thank you. Let's give her a special round of applause. Letty Perez, Gary Vincent from Rancho Cielo. Yes, David Ricard from CSUMB. Karin Lewis from Monterey County Office of Ed, Emiliano Valdez from Monterey County Arts Education Technology, who's done a lot of the video media work, Jackie Cruz from Hartnell College, Laura Elkington, who I mentioned from the County Bar Association, and I guess me. myself from Rancho Cielo. So let's give the steering committee a round of applause, please. And I've mentioned our teachers and all your participation, but I just want to give you another round of applause and thank you to all of our teachers for all your participation. So this day has ended. I hope you've enjoyed it. Now we get to go and eat. You're going to have a beautiful lunch in the presidential and the ballroom next door, followed by an incredible career exploration fair of all things related to the law pathway. So I would just ask that you all politely exit not the arena, the theater, and go to your right, and please enjoy a beautiful lunch. Thank you. All right. Hey, that went pretty.
That goes, you know, and I've got, I'll see you, because I'm going to start going to little meetings on veggie pecking day.
Oh, yeah, it's coming up. And so you'll be out there and throw our hand into some boxes.